Alright, good morning. This is an actual video showing you how to do the GeoGebra. And let's sign in here. Remember, you use the blue button to sign in. And then you're going to use Google to sign in using your school Google account. It should take a moment here and load. You may need to have to choose your actual Google account there if you have a couple of them on your computer. Alright, and then you're going to click New GeoGebra Apps. And then click Geometry. You can close the tab at the bottom here. Alright, so for this assignment you are creating a triangle, any triangle you want. And remember, we do that using the polygon button here. Just click in 3 spots. Can be any old triangle you want. Alright, so once you've created your triangle, we're going to start creating those 4 intersection points that we talked about in class. So let's see. Our first one we did was perpendicular bisector. Remember, we can create it. We could go through the whole constructions we did back in Unit 1, but GeoGebra does give you a quick, easy tool for doing perpendicular bisectors. That is right here. And notice it tells you select 2 points or a segment to create a perpendicular bisector. So you can click right on each side of your triangle and to get the perpendicular bisector of each side. Notice, just like we pointed out, they all intersect at one point. And we can label this point. Remember, in order to find the intersection of all of them, you want all 3 lines to be highlighted, and then click the button. It'll put a point there. We're going to right-click and do Object Properties, and we're going to label that point. And if we remember, we were looking at perpendicular bisectors. In the intersection of a perpendicular bisector, we call a circumcenter. So we're going to label this a circumcenter. And click Show Label. You have to click it twice to do it. And there is our circumcenter. Notice I can click on the arrow here and move these buttons around. And my 3 perpendicular bisectors are always going to intersect at a point. No matter what my triangle looks like, it may be inside the circle, could also be outside the circle. Alright, so let's do the next one we're going to do. We also talked about angle bisectors. Notice angle bisector says select 3 points or 2 lines. Well, I can select 3 points. 1, 2, 3. And I've now bisected my line. I'm going to make it a different color than my other ones, my perpendicular bisectors. So I'm going to right click, choose Object Properties, and maybe make this one red. Alright, let me do another angle bisector. Notice we can do 3 points or 2 lines, so you can even click on the sides of the triangle here. And it's bisecting that line in between. Or I'm sorry, the angle in between. I kind of like doing the points better so it doesn't do that big shape. So I'm going to do point, point, point. Again, right click on it, Object Properties, and I'm going to make it red so that all of my angle bisectors are the same color. Point, 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 right click and make it red. Alright, there are my 3 red angle bisectors. Again, notice they all intersect at one point. So I'm going to come up to my point tool and make sure all 3 lines are highlighted to put a point right where the intersection is. And I'm going to right click, Object Properties, and I'm going to give it the title. Remember, our angle bisectors, the intersection is called the incenter. So I'm going to label this my incenter. Again, show label, make sure it says caption here. In center, and I'm going to give it a color of red. Oh, wait. Let me try that again. I think I was only having one line there. I was only catching my one. Okay. Oh, goodness. Okay. There we go. All right, so I want to actually be on the point here. My intersection point. There we go. Notice it says intersection up here, so it is telling me. I was just going too fast there. There we go. In center. I can spell. Show my label. There's my in center. And again, I'm going to make it red since all of my angle bisectors were red. All right. Next, we're going to do, we did angle bisectors and perpendicular bisectors. Remember, we also want to do altitude. Altitude is creating a perpendicular line through the side of a triangle and the vertex. So perpendicular line. Notice it says select a point and a perpendicular line. My point is going to be my vertex, my line, the side of the triangle. And I've created an altitude. For confusion's sake, let's go. We'll right click and notice it tells you up here again which one I'm clicking on. My line perpendicular through B. Object properties. I'm going to make these maybe purple. There we go. So all of my altitudes will be purple. So I'm going to use perpendicular line again. Point, line. There it is. Notice it may not necessarily be inside the triangle. I'm going to right click. Object property. Notice perpendicular line. And I'm going to make it purple again. So I did this point, that point, okay, and I need this one. So I'm going perpendicular line from this point and the opposite side. There it is. I'm going to right click, object properties, make it purple. And if I were to zoom out a bit, you'll see all my purple lines intersect at the same point. So do my point again. Oops, all three purple lines intersect at this point. I'm going to right click my intersection point and I'm going to label it. Remember, the intersection of the altitudes is called the orthocenter. So we just found the orthocenter. I'm going to show my label and I'm going to make sure I color it purple. So there's my orthocenter. All right, so we did altitudes, we did the perpendicular bisector, and we did the angle bisector. Last thing we're going to do, let me zoom back in here a little, slide over, is medians. Remember, the median goes from the midpoint of one side to the vertex of the opposite angle. We can find the midpoint using this point tool and come down to midpoint. Click on those two sides of our triangle, and here is our midpoint. And then I'm going to connect a line from my midpoint to the opposite vertex. And let's see, let's make that a fun color as well. We'll go for green. All right, we'll do that again to the next side. Find the midpoint of the next side. And then we will connect that midpoint to the vertex. Right click. Let's make that green. You can choose whatever colors you want. Alright, last one. Create the midpoint. Connect midpoint to the opposite side. Right. Oops. I'm going to right click on that line. There we go. Object properties, and I'm going to color it green. And again, notice that those do all intersect at a point. So I'm going to put a point where they intersect. If we look at our definitions, intersection of the altitudes, I'm sorry, the medians. We were doing medians this time. That's our centroid. So this point here, I right click, object properties, we're going to call this our centroid. And I'm going to show the label, and I'm going to make it green. Alright, so here is our crazy triangle. If I zoom out, we can see all 4 points: orthocenter, incenter, centroid, and circumcenter. The last thing you're going to do, click on the Move button. We talked about what kind of triangle would have all of these points being exactly the same. See if you can get it to show that or explain what kind of triangle would have all of these points in the same spot. And I'll give you a hint. You can also use this angle tool to find the measure of the angles. Might help you make a prediction here on what kind of a triangle this is, where all of our points of concurrency would be the same point there. Hopefully that'll give you an idea. You can kind of move this around and look at the angles of the triangle and determine what angle or what triangle would get all 4 points in the same spot. Alright, hopefully that helps.